Hey, everybody. Before we get started, just wanted to remind you all that BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline is every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on the $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. And when the game's over, roll on down to the online casino, play some blackjack, some poker, unwind with over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. I mean, man, if you feel like we just did something like this, you are absolutely right. But times dictate that we must do what we must do to stay on top of things. Welcome, one and all, to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I am Dan Besperson. Yahoo dropped their third pre-rank board of this draft season this morning, October the 2nd. It's revision 3, and we have... I take a deep breath before I say it. 46 players that moved a significant amount, and we are going to cover all of them on today's episode I can call it lightning round, but there's only so fast that we can do a show like this, and we are going to get started momentarily, very quickly. Folks, please hit the like button if you're watching, comment if you're watching, and if you're listening after the fact, the best thing you can do for us is hit that subscribe button, and a 5-star review on either Apple or Spotify really does go a long way. Find me on social at Dan Bespers. You can find the network on social at Old Man Squad on Twitter. It'll follow you back. Eventually, it's taking me longer to get around to doing that these days because, busy, but I will, I promise. Also, Old Man Squad on TikTok, Old Man Squad Fantasy over on Instagram. I am a young person. I don't care what any of you says about it. This is pre-rank analysis today. Again, Yahoo's revision 3 of their rankings list. Basically, who are the new winners? Who are the new losers? Which guys moved past the cut point? Not cut point. That's not fair because it's not like an ad drop thing. It's basically just, are we targeting guys now on this new board that we were before? And perhaps are there guys that we're now no longer looking at if they move too far up the list? And I'll say this, before we get into the nitty-gritty of it, the difference between the ADP shows we do every Monday, which are definitely useful, and this one is, I would argue this one is actually infinitely more useful for a couple of reasons. Number one, Yahoo doesn't have to track any kind of average data on this board. This is just what they decided they wanted to do with every player, the first 400 or 500 guys basically on the list. They actually took their time with like the first 200 or so, and then it's just a total mishmash of nonsense after that. The reason that's important is that the numbers can jump farther. And you'll see this in a minute. Some guys fell 20, 25 slots. That's never going to happen with an ADP shift at this point of the season. But it's going to create an ADP shift, and then we're going to have a better idea of where guys are going in real drafts over the next couple of weeks. I would also say Yahoo's probably going to put out another board a couple days before the season starts. They often do it like the last Sunday or the last Saturday. If you can jam your draft in maybe right before that happens, then at least you'll have all of this prep time to get ready for it. Let's get into the names now, and we'll start with the risers, the folks that are going earlier. I use nicknames on this chart, so apologies for that. Don't worry, I'll say the full name out loud as we're actually going through it. Anthony Edwards, he's the man in the thumbnail for today's episode. He is going earlier. He's back up to number 10 after he had fallen. And this is sort of a back and forth bounce back thing with him. Edwards started at 10, remember, in the very first board. Then he went down to 16, and now he's back up to 10 again. I am surprised by this move because I felt like the move down to 16 was the right direction for a guy who should continue to go slightly later than that. And yet, back he goes the other way. So I hate this new spot for Edwards. I want nothing to do with him at number 10. And I'm very much leaving him alone after he had been, at least in my opinion, inching towards someone that I wasn't going to totally turn my nose up towards in 9 category leagues. James Harden up to number 12. This was a big bounce that we anticipated on a few pieces of news, one being that analysts all loved him, myself included. The other being that Kawhi Leonard might not be ready to start the year on time. So Harden's going to get to do a lot of stuff. We've now kind of priced him out, which is fine. Like, I'm still okay with him going at 12, but there's really no room for him to grow beyond that in 9 cat. Maybe 8 if turnovers end up being a really big issue. I'm okay with drafting him at 12 because just getting even money with your first-round pick is basically a win by all accounts, but there's no longer a big winner on James Harden anymore. Karl-Anthony Towns up to number 22. This is obviously on the news of him being traded to the New York Knicks, and this is a really good spot for him. Cat is going to be a second-rounder this year by all accounts, getting center stats again, which, as we talked about on the Cat breakdown trade over the weekend, last weekend, is because his numbers are going to go back up somewhere near where they were when he was last playing center for Minnesota. But the problem being, yes, when he did that, he was like number 10 per game. There have just been 6-7 guys that have gotten better around him and some new guys that emerged. And so the same stats he put up 3 years ago is no longer a first-round pick. That's a second-round pick. That's where he's going. That makes sense. That's even money. So far, I don't like Ant. Harden and Cat, even money. Jalen Williams up to number 33. This is the culmination of all of us here in the expert community yammering on and on about how much we love Jalen Williams, and he finally moved forward after basically being stuck for a while. He's now up a total of 9 slots since it started. He actually went down 1, remember, on the first revision. This is pretty close to where he should be going. Jalen Williams is a mid-30s guy last year. If there's a chance for him to improve a little bit beyond that, he could maybe get into the late 20s is the likelihood there. I'm fine with this selection. I don't think there's a massive amount of value left with him. Maybe a little tiny sliver of it. And if you're looking at totals, if he stays healthy, there's a chance he could then kind of get beyond that. Because again, if you get even money on the per game side and you get health with youth, you hope you're getting it. That's a way that you can maybe squeeze out a little bit of a win. So still okay with Jalen Williams at 33, but obviously less awesome there. Emmanuel Quickley up to number 45 in the new board, and we've priced him out now, fully priced him out. Not like a James Harden even money kind of price out with Quickley. This is now, you're starting to talk about a better case scenario for him, because when that team was healthy last season, and it was only for 9 games, so small sample size, he was around number 60. And I don't know that he's going to go too far beyond that, which is why at 55, you're thinking, okay, fine. Like, you get him around where he's probably going to be. If anybody misses a game, Quickley picks up the slack. That's good. That's how he moves beyond it. But he's got no shot to get into the 20s like he did last year when Scotty Barnes was down and RJ Barrett was half out and Jakob Poeltl was down. These guys are all back, and they're going to do a bunch. And Quickley's looking at probably a 45 to 65 range kind of per game stuff. So you're drafting him kind of at the front end of that. I don't really like it anymore. Well. Brandon Miller at number 59, I want nothing to do with. He started at 70. Even there, I wasn't that enthused about him. And I know what you're looking at me. You're like, Dan, aren't you going to bake in some improvements for a young player? Yeah, but is that Brandon Miller was around number 110 the final 2 months when basically there was nobody else around besides Miles Bridges to do anything on that Charlotte team. 18.5 points. He was near 3 threes. He's basically posting a very bland shooting guard type of line. And if it gets better, the hope would be free throw gets a little better, field goal gets a little better. But is there going to be more shot for him to take besides 16? That feels like a pretty high number already for the dude. So it's efficiency that you're probably pointing at and saying, I hope that gets better. Is that going to be enough to move him? Again, this was like 110 range down the stretch last year on 16 shots a game. Is there enough to get him where he is now? I don't think so. 59, 5th round pick. There's just too many other guys in there that are more interesting. Bradley Beal, a massive flying leap forward. This one hurts me to my core. He jumped 17 slots. I loved Bradley Beal going near 80. I don't love him anymore near 60 because now he's probably around, 50 to 60 range is the likely per game number for him. But no longer have that wiggle room for him to miss time, which was always the whole, look, if you get him at 80, you get a guy that could beat that mark by 3 rounds, and then, okay, if he misses 20 ball games, you sort of swallow that pill down and it balances itself out. Now, if you got to take him with your 5th round pick, if he misses 20 games, there's no chance he beats that mark by totals anymore. So I kind of don't really like Beal at this marker anymore, and that takes a target of ours off the board. And hopefully, when we get to the fallers on this show, we'll see if some other targets maybe take his place. Cam Thomas didn't go up all that much on this one, just another half round or so, but the fact that he's still going forward I thought was notable because Cam now is up to number 67. He started at 92. I don't know what we're doing anymore here. He's a full punt field goal guy, and there's just absolutely no reason to draft him there if you're not punting field goals. Keep that analysis short. Josh Giddey at number 69. He's probably priced himself out a little bit as well, at least on the 9 category side. 8 cat, you could make a decent argument to take him at this juncture. Again, he's not a guy who jumped a big leaping, flying leap forward, but it's now 2 small leaps for Giddey, who opened at 82. Now he's at 69 after 2 board revisions. He has top 58 cat potential. He has more like around this range, 9 cat potential. So if you're thinking about punting turnovers, I think he's an okay pick near 70. If you're still competing in them, make sure that your earlier picks were not high in that department, and then you can kind of do it and balance it out. So I don't hate him here, but I'm probably not really targeting him here either. One of the biggest movers in this recent little clump, Isaiah Hartenstein, all the way up to number 71. Yahoo trying to price him out and make us all sad in the process. He opened at 96. He jumped 10 slots in the first revision, now 15 more. This is upsetting because now we are no longer drafting Hartenstein below his floor. We're now drafting him above it because the floor is like, 75, 85 kind of range. Meaning things need to break properly for this to still be a good grab. I think there's still a tiny bit of room here on Hartenstein, and I think I would still take him around 70, but we're right on the razor's edge because if folks continue to price him farther forward, if like people start climbing over each other to get him and he starts ending up in the mid 60s, early 60s even, then we've probably gone too far. Anthony Simons all the way up to number 73. I did not see this big jump coming after he actually dropped during the previous revision, down from 83 to 88, now all the way up to 73. This is crazy. Portland might try to trade him. He might get shut down. I want nothing to do with Anthony Simons at 73. No, thank you. Colin Sexton, the biggest jumper of any relevant fantasy player during this last revision. He moved from 118 to 76. They took him from 10th round all the way to the beginning of the 7th, which, by the way, is notable because he was at 141 when the board opened. He's jumped 65 total slots in the 2 Yahoo revisions. And by the way, folks, we've priced him out too. This is too high for Colin Sexton, a guy who has good scoring and efficiency, but really doesn't do anything else. And we have no idea what kind of role he's going to have this year. It might be good. It might be bad. It might be start good and then get bad. This is way early. I thought he was at 118. I thought was already kind of like, yeah, it's a pretty good pick here. I mean, we're going to get a little bit of wiggle room. 76. And the thing about Sexton too, is you almost have to be punting like, it's sort of like a punt steals kind of guard because his fantasy lines are so weird. Anyway, OG Anunoby's up to number 81. He was a big leaper too, 28 slots, and I don't really much care for him at 81 when I feel like we can get the same stuff from guys like Alex Caruso, Herb Jones, Jalen Suggs, now 2 rounds later, basically. We're on to the second page of risers. Let's take a quick commercial break before we get to those. Jonathan Kuminga, pretty good jump up to number 90 on the latest board. That's a 15-slot rise after he fell 16. So this is interesting. It's like Yahoo decided they wanted to course correct. He opened at 89, fell to 105. He's back basically to that same number now. This is fine. In fact, he was fine at 105. I'm not that excited about Kuminga this year. So I'm probably just not going to draft him. And it's fine. Like, he might be around here. He might be a little better. He might be a little worse. Probably not going to change by all that much because he has some flaws in his fantasy game that probably aren't going to sort themselves out during an off season. So I don't know that there's like a big forward leap coming beyond what we saw the second half of last year, which was around this range. Daniel Gafford up to number 111. He jumped 31 slots, although he started at 119 and fell 23, so there's really no explaining that weirdness. This is back where he should have been. Gafford should be a guy going in the 10th round. If he can maintain 22 minutes a game, he'll be a good selection. If Derek Lively overtakes him completely and it's like a 29-19 split, then Gafford flames out. So it's a perfect mix of upside and downside. This is where he should have been. I'm okay with drafting him here. Amen Thompson continues to rise. He's up to number 112 on the Yahoo board. And 10th round is where I'd take him too. I'm good with that. Again, like, it's less fun, the fact that maybe we could have got him in the 11th before this and the 12th before that revision. 12th was amazing. 11th was fun. 10th is fine. Brandon Podziemski at number 114. I am not that excited about Podziemski at 114. And I know I'm one of the weirdos who's not a massive Brandon Podziemski fan. I feel like I needed to see more. And I know there's like this outline of, he could hit some threes and get some boards and get some assists and maybe some steals, but I don't think the percentages are going to be very good. I don't think he's going to score that much this year. So it's going to have to be kind of a lot of the non-prolific counting stats, boards, assists, steals, threes kind of thing. There's going to have to be like a good amount of those. And so I feel like Podziemski's angling for a top 100 kind of year. Which, again, that's fine, but I don't know. It's just not really my cup of tea. Zach Edey back up to 118. I don't know if this is on the Jaren Jackson maybe injury news, although the Grizz are like, we still think he might start the first game of the year, so we'll see about that. But we just talked about Zach Edey with Matt Lawson on our last episode, and he was like, look, this is a big man who blocks a lot of shots. He's gigantic, and he doesn't shoot horribly at the foul line. So give him a look. Like 24 minutes might be enough for him, because all you're hoping to get is like 8 rebounds, 1.5 blocks or more, and good percentages, and maybe he does that. It probably caps the upside a little bit, and a lot of the value is likely locked up in 1 or 2 categories. But at the end of the 10th round, when you compare him to some of the guys going around him now, there is actually an okay argument to be made for Edey over, say, someone like a PJ Washington, who just got jumped up the board as well. And we'll get to him in a second. Klay Thompson is the next name out there at 119. He's back up again from 143. I'm not really targeting Klay in head-to-head. I like him in games cap roto in this spot because you can use him, for the 30-some-odd starts, or he's going to start every day. For the 30-some-odd games where Luka or Kyrie's out and he gets like a 4 or 5 field goal attempt bump. The other games I'm not super thrilled about. So he's more of a spot play guy for me, which technically somebody I'd rather get in the 11th round or later, so a bench guy. But, end of the 10th round, beginning of the 11th, this is hair splitting. PJ Washington up to number 122. I have no idea why he was in the 190s. He always should have been in this range as a guy who probably ends up near the 100 mark. But hey, what if he has a more efficient season? That's how this sort of works. Whatever that means, I guess. Does it work? I don't know, but there's a chance for some upside there. Norman Powell at 125. Treat him like a hot free agent. If you want to get him in the 11th round or later. Use him until Kawhi Leonard is back, and then he's probably not going to be that good after that. Maybe for spot plays. Andrew Wiggins at 136. He's actually kind of an upside play because if he actually decides he wants to take some of the Klay Thompson stuff and not give it up to the new guys, Wiggins could go back to being that 90 range guy we saw a couple years ago. I don't think he's ever going to be the 60-some-odd range guy he was for the Warriors before his dad got sick. But, inside the top 100 is reachable. Keon Ellis is on this list, if only because he was the single biggest jumper of anyone on the board. He jumped from number 293 to 145. Like a legitimate Yahoo decided he needed to be in the mix because the Kings came out and said he's the starter until Kevin Huerter gets healthy. But Kevin Huerter could be healthy 3 weeks into the season. So as much as I love Keon Ellis' fantasy game, and don't get me wrong, I do because I love defensive stats, I'm not spending a draft pick on him because I don't think there's full season appeal there. Sochan up from 185 to 146. I'm not taking a shot on him there either. I think there's better, flyer types. Ben Simmons up to 154 from 199. He might be a better flyer type, frankly, with your very last pick. And then Scoot Henderson just moving sort of slowly onto the end of fantasy list radar at number 155 instead of 175. He's very much a fit guy. You need to be punting turnovers, probably field goal percent as well, if you want to put him on your fantasy team. Okay, let's move over to the fallers. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. So, goal is still to get this thing done in under 40 minutes, and I think we might be able to do it. The biggest faller on the board, okay, that's not true. The most notable faller on the board is also the very first faller on the board, and that's Kevin Durant, who drops down to number 19. And I realize moving a handful of slots, Kevin almost 2 handfuls, doesn't seem like a lot, but at the top of the board, it's huge. It's the biggest move by anyone near the top of the board not involved in a trade. Cat being the only player who moved farther. Durant from number 10 down to number 19 means that he now moves from that first crop, the first rounder, the guy you are building around, to a mid to late second rounder, a guy that you are pairing with the dude you're building around. And just by moving him down, even if the ADPs take a minute or two to catch up to this, what Yahoo's done now is they've said, look, you can get someone at like 9, 10, 11, 12, and you can probably get Kevin Durant coming back in the second round. And I legitimately cannot, in my mind, envision a more perfect player to take in a second round in fantasy than Kevin Durant, because he's good at everything. And I've said it before, my favorite thing to do in fantasy drafts is to delay making a hard decision on what my team is good or bad at. The longer you delay that, the longer you stay good at a lot of stuff. And so Kevin Durant, as a pairing, works great with basically anyone. As the first round pick in a pairing, he's actually kind of a difficult player to build around because you don't have a built-in super strength with him. He is very good in points and both percentages. He is quite good in blocks. He is good in rebounds and assists, and he's okay in threes and steals. And so now you're looking at a player that's like, okay, this guy's not giving me that polarizing mega start in any one category, but he's making sure that I don't lose ground in any categories. Pick a first-round pick you like. I don't care who you name. Pick Trae Young. Do you put Kevin Durant with him? Great. Covers up a field goal percent issue. Leans into a free throw percent build. Covers up a blocks issue. Has 5 assists so you don't take a big step back there. Gets enough threes so you're not taking a step back there. The only thing you're not great at on a Trae Young, Kevin Durant start is rebounds. Eventually, you'll get a big man, so maybe you can cover that up. Or maybe that's what you end up punting, because a Trae Young build, you usually end up punting some big man stat. Pick a different first rounder. How does Kevin Durant pair with Anthony Davis? Great. Your scoring is fine. Your threes are kind of low. Maybe you're a punt threes team. Rebounds are good. Assists are fine, considering you don't have a guard yet. Steals are fine, considering you don't have a guard yet. Blocks are good. Percentages are great. You have to make sure you get a point guard in the third round or you're doomed. But again, all of these things, everybody fits with Kevin Durant when he's the second guy you're picking. So I love him at 19. This is one of my new favorites. I don't know where he's actually going to go, but that's why we spent 4 minutes on KD. Kyrie Irving down to number 21. I told you guys if he started going outside the top 20, I was going to start taking him, so I'm going to start taking him. I'm not going to go into a lot of math on Kyrie. We've talked about him ad nauseum on the show, but I like him here. I think the upside outweighs the missed game downside. Dejounte Murray fell a little bit further. This is a Yahoo going, should we bump him a little farther? Yeah, let's bump him a little farther. Started at 24, down to 29, now down to 36. We're finally getting to where I'd feel more comfortable. I like Dejounte in the 40s. If I have a pick, like if I have the 11th pick, the 4th round, you take Dejounte at 38. That's fine. It's not a bad selection. What if he finishes at top, like number 45? Who cares? That's nothing. That's the same. 38 and 45 are basically the same. So this is fine. Dejounte has now finally moved into I'm okay with it zone. Kawhi Leonard falling to number 48. This feels like a little bit of an overreaction to the Kawhi Leonard news, because I think what I said on the podcast was, look, there's absolutely no way you can take him in the second round. I don't think I would take him in the third. Hey, maybe he falls to the fourth or fifth. And Yahoo was like, hold my beer. We will guarantee he falls to the fourth or fifth by moving him to the end of the fourth round in pre-rank. Kawhi fell 18 slots here after starting at 45, raising up to 30, which to me still didn't quite feel high enough. Then we got the, he's still dealing with a sore knee. But Kawhi said he's looking to try to play on opening night. Here's the thing. Kawhi's knee, not Kawhi's knee, whatever. When he gets out on the court, he's probably a top 5 per game dude. Meaning, if you're getting that in the 40s, that to me is a no-brainer. Like, you get half a season out of him, and that's probably still worth it. It's really annoying in head-to-head because you want that guy for your playoffs. I get it. But just from a strict, like, am I getting my value from this pick standpoint, straight math? The answer would be yes. Because Kawhi Leonard last year was Kevin Durant without the turnovers. And I just told you guys I would take that dude in the second round. Would I take that dude with more injury risk in the fourth? I absolutely would. What this also does, unfortunately, and then we'll get to the next name on the board, is it puts Kawhi Leonard back in the same round with Jimmy Butler, which is both good and bad, I guess. I shouldn't say unfortunately, because there's sort of an up and a downside. The good news there is that means you can't really take two terrifying, big per game upside, but injury risk guys back to back. Because I knew it was going to happen to me in some draft. If they didn't move Kawhi Leonard, I was going to end up with Kawhi in the third and Butler in the fourth, and I was just going to be sitting on my hands the whole year going, please, Lord, just keep him steady, get him to 63 or something like that. And now, odds are I'm going to be picking between them in the fourth round, and when I have that choice, I'm going Kawhi because his per game is just a lot better. Jared Allen fell to number 56. I don't really understand this one. He's a very safe top 50 center type. I love him. If he really is now a fifth rounder instead of fourth, I'm going to end up with Jared Allen in the fifth in a ton of drafts this year. Because again, even money is good in drafts. Small wins are great across the board. Big wins are fantastic, but if you gun for those, you're going to end up missing a lot. Brandon Ingram fell to number 75. This should have happened a long time ago. Pretty big fall, actually. 17 slots he dropped. I think we're almost down where Ingram makes sense. I still don't think I even really want him at 75 with the way the Pelicans are all jammed up. The good thing about Ingram is that he's efficient. So, you know, at least he's not going to bludgeon your team. And he was number 85 last year, and he's probably going to do less this season, and he's an injury risk and blah, blah, blah. But you could make a half-decent argument for him in this range, and he was number 60 in 8-cat. So I think what I guess the final take on Ingram at 75 is 8-cat. I think I'm good with it. 9-cat, it's not quite there yet, but it's close. Michael Porter Jr. finally fell down, as he should. I don't know why there was this love for Michael Porter Jr., who's totally fine. I always thought he was going to be one of the most boring, fine, safe plays around where he was going, which was near like 70 to 75. Down at 82, I actually think he's kind of nice. He was 71 last year. Low turnovers was part of it. He's cheap Tobias Harris, effectively. So if you don't get Tobias a round and a half sooner, you can get Michael Porter Jr., and that's fine. That's fine, really. Yeah, I got no more thoughts on him. I was thinking if there's something else I wanted to talk about. CJ McCollum at number 94. As I've said, I'm pretty much avoiding Pelicans, but this number's crazy. I know DeJounte Murray's showing up, and CJ is going to do a bunch less, but he was 35th in 9-cat last year. Yeah, some of the percentages were a bit high. It seemed like those were ripe to tumble down, but Brandon Ingram gets hurt a lot, and Zion gets hurt a lot, and there's always going to be some sort of avenue to do a little bit more in New Orleans. And so McCollum in the 90s, to me, feels like an almost guaranteed small win or better. So I love CJ there. Kobe White fell to number 95. I didn't really like Kobe White where he was at 81. At 95, I guess I'm okay with it. He's a little bit of a fit kind of dude in that He's a score first point guard on a Bulls team where we just don't really know how the guard minutes are going to get allotted now that Lonzo Ball is also back in the mix. And it sounds like Zach LaVine is actually bought in and they're going to try to win. Oh, Bulls. You guys are so silly. But, Kobe White's going to put up some scoring numbers. He'll hit some threes. He's going to be a positive in free throw percent. He's your boring, like, basically, is the difference between Kobe White and Brandon Miller that big? Because the numbers were pretty similar last year. Miller's defensive stats a little bit better. I'll give him that. But, like, Brandon Miller in the 50s, Kobe White near 100. If you're giving me the choice, do I want to take Miller in the 5th round or White in the 8th or 9th? I would definitely take White in the 8th or 9th between those two guys. This just isn't a player that I'm targeting all that often. If I have a nice advantage in steals, that's a direction that would maybe allow me to go the Kobe White path. But I keep ending up with teams that are not that great in steals, and I keep having to get one of the steals guys that's going near 100. This is a move Yahoo made that we saw coming a mile away. Clint Capella, it was almost like somebody had a typo in the last board. He went from 91 to 74. It was just bat bleep crazy. Now he's back down to 103, which is fine. That's where these middling punt free throw centers should be going, between 100 and 120. And now he's right in there with all of his buddies. And not all of these guys are bad at foul shooting, but in terms of like centers going around there, you've got Ivica Zubac, Onyeka Okongwu, now Capella's in the mix, joining Walker Kessler, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, Trace Jackson Davis. They're all in there. And we're going to get to him in a second here, Brook Lopez is also down there now. Anyway, Capella at 103, totally fine now. Not a target. I'd probably rather go with almost any of the other centers I just listed, but his rank is no longer stupid. Now it's just kind of like, bah. And the craziest one to me is Brook Lopez. And admittedly, he was too high before. Brook was at 73, which was nuts because he was in that 90 range after Doc Rivers took over. But falling through that, beyond it down to 107 is an unexpected drop-off of 34 slots that I just really didn't see coming. It's just so uncommon for big-name players to move 3 rounds like this without some kind of big news coming out. This is the kind of move you'd expect if the Bucks were like, oh, Bobby Portis is going to start this year. But no, that's not happening. And Brook Lopez, we know if the blocks happen to trend back up a little bit, he just goes blowing right past this mark. So suddenly now, Brook Lopez, who I thought was going way too early, now I think he's going kind of too late. So I like Brook Lopez at 107. Tyus Jones fell 17 slots down to 113. I'm just not into Tyus Jones this year. You could push him another 15 slots down, and I'd probably do it. RJ Barrett down to 117 changes nothing for me. I didn't want him at 118 when this thing started. I didn't want him at 101 when he went up the board. I don't want him at 117 now. Malcolm Brogdon at 128. I mean, you could kind of treat him like a Norman Powell effectively, which is, hopefully get something good to start the year and then drop him when the wheels come off. Or just do something else. Probably leaning to do something else. Mike Conley fell 16 spots for some unknown reason to 129. It's not like the Wolves are going to give someone else the keys to the boat. They were just so much better when Conley was the guy steering the ship. This was music to mine ears. I don't know why Conley is now an 11th rounder, but I ain't going to argue with it because dude was a 6th round value last year, and his role is probably going to stay exactly the same. Shaedon Sharpe fell a long way. Not that it matters. Like, I didn't want him before. He opened at 109, fell to 123, now down to 150. There's just, the fantasy game for 9cat just isn't there. So leave it alone. Doesn't really matter how far he falls. You leave it alone unless you're a super deep league, and then fine. Like, if you're in a 14 or a 16 teamer and you're at the end of your draft, have at it because you'll get some counting stats, but the percentages are going to be doing more damage than the counting stats are doing good. Dennis Schroeder fell 31 spots to 152. Again, there's no upside with him. And so 12 teamers, I want nothing to do with Schroeder in almost any circumstance. If you are punting field goal percent, you could probably go that path and get a few assists out of your last pick, kind of pair him up with someone like a Keontae George or a Scoot Henderson at the end of your draft and get some guards that no one else really wants. But straight 9-cat, I'll pass. Gary Trent Jr. down to 156. He was going as the last pick in most drafts anyway, even though his pre-rank was 131. This kind of guarantees, because technically now 156, that is the last pick of a Yahoo Public League. That's 13 times 12. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll happily take him with my 13th pick because I think he coasts along near 100. And we know Middleton is banged up. And if Dame takes a game off or if Giannis takes a game off or whatever, that's how Trent goes shooting beyond that. Hell, in Roto, you could use him as a plug-and-play guy. But I think head-to-head, he's going to be a pretty good compiler, and I would happily take him with my last pick. And then I just wanted to highlight one other player, and that was Mitchell Robinson. Yahoo did now adjust for the injury, and he's at 157, and you should not be drafting him under any circumstance at all. That... How many names was that again? 46 names in 35 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Good Lord, the pain is real. My voice is tired. My constitution is weak. The spirit is willing. And we got ourselves through. Actually, I got to record another podcast to drop tomorrow morning because it is Rosh Hashanah evening, Erev, as we like to say in the brew. Shana Tova to all of my listeners of the Jewish faith. Have a wonderful, happy, and healthy New Year celebration. I will be sort of AFK, away from keyboard, away from keyboard, out of office, whatever. Tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, I won't be around, so I got to record a show tonight. We'll get something dropping when I'm not there. But don't worry, we'll make sure that we get you guys some shows. I am not taking the foot off the gas no matter what here during this run up to the season, and we're going to keep our gas, the accelerator pedal down all the way through one full calendar year. I've talked about this before. My goal is to spend exactly one full calendar year going as completely buck wild and lunatic level stuff on podcasts and Twitter and social and free everything as humanly possible. And if you guys love it and you guys continue to support it and you're always liking and subscribing and dropping those reviews and all that good stuff, and that can generate the advertising dollars to power the locomotive, I'll just keep doing it. If not, we'll come up with some alternate path. But don't worry, Dano's around for the long haul. I am not going anywhere. Thank you, as always, for watching, everybody. Again, hit that like button. Leave a comment if you have some thoughts on any of these 46 freaking players that bounced around on the new Yahoo Pre-Rank Board, some of them by quite a lot. Follow Old Man Squad and Dan Vespers on Twitter, Old Man Squad on TikTok, and Old Man Squad Fantasy on Instagram. We will be back, oh my goodness, with the Yahoo board. I got so many shows we got to do. The by request was busts and steals in every round. So that might be the one that drops tomorrow morning, or that might be the one I throw up Friday afternoon because everybody loves listening to that stuff over the weekend. We've got a top 25 to redo. We've got a top 50 to redo. We've got a My Perfect Team to redo. We've got a lot of stuff to go over with this new Yahoo board, and we got to do a bunch of mocks again because the players that are going in each area, depending on what pick you have, just changed a bunch. Holy crap, saying it out loud, I suddenly feel extremely overwhelmed. I don't have time to do more than 2 shows a day, but it kind of feels like we need 3. Wonder if there's another Dan Vespers that I could have sub in when I, Dan Vespers, need to take a rest. Oh, well, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching, everybody.